Listen to me very closely and very carefully. The knowledge which will be imparted onto you is something which entails a high degree of confidentiality. The moment you know the truth, you must continue the lie with everyone else. That is the only way any of us will remain alive. Do you understand? Very well. Commencing entry. Every Warframe model we have ever developed has only required a single operator to pilot it, since under normal circumstances, that's how they were designed. This is not normal circumstances. The day that the Zariman 10-0 miraculously returned from the deepest folds of the void was a day we will never forget, both in memory and in blood. Imagine our shock when it appeared after years of mystery and shredded our presumptions of it becoming a lost ship. Imagine our shock when search and rescue teams reported finding the entire onboard crew dead, only to find in autopsies later that every single deceased crew member's nervous system had been ravaged by void energy. And then children were discovered on board the ship, alive. Initial efforts to escort the children off the Zariman 10-0 were particularly unsuccessful. The vast majority of them were not cooperative with rescue personnel, and thus heavily resisted all rescue efforts. We did not learn until later that this happened because every child was then suffering from void-induced psychosis, resulting in them believing that we were there to kill them, or worse. Eventually, the Zariman 10-0 was recovered, and all children on board the Zariman were contained for analysis, except for 5 particular children who were shown to have particular influence over most of the other children on board the Zariman. Eridanus, originally presumed dead during testing of the Hydroid Warframe, now currently in custody. Nebrum, kidnapped by rogue Archimedeans, currently missing along with schematics of the Baruch Warframe. Icarus, killed in action during an attempted escape with a prototype of the Zephyr Warframe. And Gemini, twins with an unnaturally strong psychic bond with each other, made even more unstable based on emotional state. File number Uniform Echo Oscar Tango Sierra TAC 025. Designation Equinox. Since their very first day in our custody, Gemini have displayed interesting traits. In one case, one twin would reach out for water and pass it to the other without a single word or other form of visible or audible communication, as if one knew the other was thirsty. In another case, where both of them were isolated for a prolonged period of time due to medical evaluations, both twins displayed unique levels of stress. The boy became distraught and curled into a ball at the corner of his room. We thought nothing of it until we started receiving more and more reports of electrical and equipment failure all throughout the facility, even in other buildings running on different power circuits. The girl would meditate quietly at the center of her room, yet metallic grinding sounds would be produced from her chamber for days and nights on end. Later investigation revealed that the inside of her room was near destroyed by some invisible force, as evidenced by innumerable slash marks on the walls, despite surveillance footage revealing that she never moved a muscle. For this reason, it was deemed necessary to keep both twins together as frequently as possible in order to avoid any potential catastrophe. But the latent potential within both twins did raise an interesting question. Was it possible to create a dual-pilot Warframe through development of transference? We discovered the answer, but at a cost. Attribute number 1, Transfiguration. In keeping with the nature of the twins, the Equinox Warframe was given a modified intake within its infested tissue. Repairing the tissue grants a small dosage of energy, whereas gathering energy repairs tissue by a small amount. We have tried experimenting with larger quantities, but all of them have resulted in eventual internal destruction of the Equinox chassis. That being said, The Warframe chassis was crafted specifically to support an ever-changing nature, reflected by the opposing characteristics of the twins. At will, the primary pilot may alter the Warframe between two specifications, the Sun and the Moon. Both specifications have different purposes, meaning that ultimately it is up to the operator in question as to how to use the Equinox Warframe. Although our testing with the twins has been somewhat limited, we have in fact managed to create an option for the operator to briefly manifest both specifications of the Equinox Warframe at once via the Duality Supplementary module. It should be noted that this item in question can be affected by any and all modules that affect duration. Attribute number 2, Mentality. Due to the frame itself containing two operators rather than one, the concept was for the functions of Equinox to be split between the two. One operator would function as the standard pilot for the Equinox Warframe, being in charge of all normal motor and logical functions, while the other operator would function as a living battery for void energy, thereby taking a significant strain off of the primary pilot. That being said, regardless of Equinox being in the Sun or Moon specification, the design was for the secondary pilot to always be the source of void energy. While in the Sun form, Equinox can send out a radial wave of psychic energy, targeting the motor functionality of whatever is struck, causing inflicted enemies to move faster at the cost of striking with less finesse, overall dealing less damage. While in the Moon form, Equinox deploys an aura, mimicking that of what the boy has done while isolated from his sister. All hostiles within the aura are shut down, so to speak, preventing any and all action or movement from occurring. Thanks to a little bit of experimentation with infested microparticles, the Frenzy supplementary module may also be utilized in order to allow Equinox to spread either effect like a virus. Usage of it comes down to the operator's discretion. Attribute number 3, Belligerence. During the Sun specification, Equinox produces a psychically generated electromagnetic field which resonates with all nearby Warframes, causing them to become temporarily empowered so long as they remain within the area. During the Moon specification, Equinox instead generates a secondary field, invading the consciousness of all nearby enemies with a volatile force, causing anything that is afflicted to lose strength based on their proximity to Equinox. For additional effects during either specification, the Provocation module may be considered. Regardless, Equinox's dual pilot concept was tested several times both in a controlled environment and in the field by the twins, and the results were quite remarkable. It's very possible that a dual pilot system would have become the standard among all Warframes with Equinox as the pioneer, were it not for one thing. Although the dual pilot concept works on paper and in practice, the problem is that it's highly lethal to the second operator. Under normal circumstances, limiters would be installed within a Warframe to suppress an operator's full potential, so they don't burn themselves out, so to speak. We did not do this for Equinox because, again, the twins did not represent normal circumstances. Attribute number 4, Reality. You may be asking yourself, what lie was I referring to earlier? At this point, I believe you can hear it now. The girl died in action, not because she was slain, but because we watched her burn her soul out with repeated usage of pure, uncontrolled void energy. Of course, the boy watched it happen. It took 427 Dex soldiers for him to be successfully pacified and temporarily placed in suspended animation. We tapped into his psyche and erased that moment from his memory, all the while ensuring he's given a constant supply of hallucinogens. Is it cruel to conjure up a dead child? We disagree, as it's better to keep the boy happy but ignorant. No one knows how destructive it would be if he ever remembers the truth, and for that reason, he continues to live in a false world where he believes she is still alive. even if just a figment of his imagination. Although we have since then been forced to convert all future iterations of the Equinox Warframe back into a single operator configuration, the Equinox Warframe has started to mimic specific aspects of the girl's power, as if Equinox seemingly learned these traits despite her death, or if somehow her soul has become infused with the Warframe itself. Current research into those possibilities is inconclusive. The moon form allows the operator to provide a brief surge in power to the energy shielding of any Warframe within the area upon successfully eliminating a target, significantly increasing in potency if this effect is willingly deactivated, whereas the sun form allows the operator to afflict all nearby hostiles with sudden but severe internal bleeding, which may be followed up by a wide surge of slashing force, very similar to the bygone days of the twins' isolation. Regardless of whatever form is active, the operator may utilize the transfer module to, like the name implies, transfer any and all stored potency of one form's effects to the other. But I digress. Whatever you do, just keep pretending. If the boy asks about his sister, just play along with it. It's better than having to deal with the alternative. Terminating entry.